Clan Mei. They are the spear of Ku. They're also incredibly poor at making decisions. I'll be explaining my reasons for this, but first I must establish a few things. For one, I just beat Octopath 2 shortly before the writing of this video. It's one of the best new games I've played in ages. I love this game a lot, so while I am bashing this one clan's writing, please understand that I do still very much like this game and its lore. I even hope for an Octopath 3. Second, I should give a warning that there will be spoilers for Hikari's story. If you're not at least past his chapter 4, you'd be best turning back. With that out of the way, I should set up the lore for Hikari's kingdom. Hikari is from Clan Ku, which is based in a city sharing the same name, Ku. Ku is a part of the Hinawayuma region, which is the desert region of the game. There are two other settlements of Hinawayuma, that being of Sai and of Ryu, the latter of which being where you actually meet Hikari. Clan Ku's dominion does not seem entirely certain, but the game confirms that Sai is under Ku's rule. Online sources for Octopath are rather sparse when it comes to lore, so I find Ryu a desert outpost rather than a town to have an ambiguous status. I'm not sure if Ryu is maybe the outskirts of Imperial Ku, or just, an independent outpost. Though, even if that were the case, it wouldn't be able to mount any meaningful resistance with how low the population is and how poorly guarded the settlement is. We also know that Clan Mei swore fealty to Clan Ku when Hikari was a child. The land Clan Mei holds during the events of Hikari's story is in Stormhail, though it is worded by the game that their castle in Stormhail was given to them as a sort of colonial outpost to springboard future influence onto the eastern continent. This does seem a bit odd to imagine this being Clan Mei's traditional land though, as just looking at the map, this makes little sense. Though we'll get more into this later in the video. Going to Ku's diplomatic history, it has been quite the warmongering kingdom, expanding militarily decades before the events of the game. So it was once an independent kingdom, the Kingdom of Yu. I'm just going to be calling it Yu like the letter since I don't believe the game ever tells us how it's actually pronounced. This kingdom was once the strongest power on the western continent, with its technology being found as far from Sai as Kenelbrine, which owes its canal technology to Yu. It is unknown how far their borders extended at its peak. I think the canals of Kenelbrine being derived from Yu might be a fictional world counterpart of how in our world you can still find remains of old Roman aqueducts throughout Europe and the Middle East, some of which are still even functioning in modern times, such as the Aqua Vergina in Rome, Italy. This may imply Kenelbrine was a part of the Kingdom of Yu at one point. However, the kingdom was conquered decades ago, and now Kenelbrine appears to be an independent city-state. The only hint remaining besides his engineering is a former carpenter of Yu in Kenelbrine's tavern, as well as an NPC mentioning many people made refuge for Kenelbrine from Yu. I'll be bringing up Kenelbrine later. In more recent times, Clan Ku has been warring to the west of its Sai territory, the events of which are told by Cassie's story in Sai. The game is a bit vague in who Clan Ku is at war with in the story, but after it is finished and a ceasefire is put into motion, we're given a few hints by NPCs. For one, we can see that Griff is a member of the Kingdom of Timburaine's military. Why would someone from Timburaine be here? There's another NPC elsewhere in Sai who mentions Timburaine has its own problems, implying a difference between Timburaine and Sai, which would be random unless it was their enemy, since why else would you bring them up? Assuming this means that Ku is at war with Timburaine, which somewhat like Ku seems to be holding dominion over the rest of its respective region, the Leaflands, there's only a king in Timburaine, so it would suggest Ku is large enough to share a border with Timburaine's southern territory. It is unclear what Ku's territorial eastern border is. The game only shows Conning Creek and Kenelbrine as settlements east of Ku's foothold, but they seem to have no influence or even face threat of Mugen's advance. While there is some evidence of Kenelbrine's ties to the west in the past, there is absolutely none in Conning Creek, which is odd as it's even closer geographically to Ku than Kenelbrine is. The game also suggests that Clan Ku has no border disputes or influence in the Wildlands, though that's probably because there's just nothing of value for them in that direction. I'll also show a map of roughly the borders I speculate Ku to have during the events of Octopath 2's main story. With the background on Ku itself out of the way, let's look into Raimei and her clan. Hikari is first introduced to them when he was a child. He would meet the then clan leader Jinmei, Jinmei being Raimei's older brother. It was the day that Clan Mei would swear fealty to Clan Ku. Jinmei and Hikari started out on good terms, with a duel, and eventually Hikari took Jinmei on as somewhat of a mentor in fighting. The good times would not last, however, as one day a group of brigands jumped Hikari and his mother. Hikari did fend them off, but not before one of them landed a fatal blow onto his mother. The grief awakened the cursed blood of Ku, which when active would push its bloodlust onto the members of Clan Ku. Using it, he cut down the remaining bandits. Unfortunately, it was not exactly controllable, Jin Mei and Rai Mei showed up, but too late. Lady Korra was dead, and Hikari was under the cursed blood. After a duel to pacify the curse, Jin Mei explained to his sister that he was responsible for the bandits, forced to do so by Mugen, no doubt to eliminate opposition to his ambitions among the royal court. However, the plan wasn't a success as Hikari survived and Jin Mei had to face Mugen. Mugen had him executed for his failure, thus leaving Rai Mei now as the head of Clan Mei. She continued staying loyal to Hikari as they grew older, fighting alongside him and Ritsu for the pacification of a kingdom to the south of Ku. They went their separate ways for the next 3 years, however. During this time, King Jigo was overthrown and killed by Mugen, who assumes the throne. He forces many of Hikari's former allies to track him down and end him. This includes Rai Mei. Rai Mei has orders to kill Hikari if she ever gets the chance. This chance does present itself in Hikari's Chapter 4, where she sets him into a would-be death trap, were it not for his tenacious blood. Instead, he's locked up in Clan Mei's castle keep, awaiting his execution. Rai Mei explains this difficult situation to her right-hand man, Kunzo, who eventually later frees Hikari, which helps Hikari convince Rai Mei to actually going and joining his side after all. This does end up helping, but the problem is that she's kind of thick-skulled, and that's kind of my issue here. She emphasizes all she does is for the survival of Clan Mei, but this is precisely where I take issue, and where the real question takes shape, because while that reason makes sense, where's the problem? I should remind you, this whole Chapter 4 story is in Stormhail. It is literally the opposite side of the map from Ku. It is not close at all to reinforce or threaten. It is far inland, in the mountains, and in a harsh environment. However, it is also the main hub of the Church of the Flame. The Church has its own military, so choosing this as a base of operations for the time being is incredibly stupid. How this area came under the heel of Ku at all makes zero sense. Did Clan Mei already own part of Stormhail and then decided they needed protection? And if so, from what? The Church? And even if so, let's say the Church attacks, how does Clan Ku reinforce them? It'll take them ages to get over there. They don't seem to even control the coast of their home continent, not to mention have a navy or any practical way to reach outposts. Ku wants to be a colonial empire with no port cities or navy. How does that even work? And better yet, why on earth does a woman keep blabbing about keeping her clan safe? What, is Mugen gonna book an airplane to Stormhail to crush a rebellious group of at most 100 people? I'm sure he'd love to punish Clan Mei, but that's literally the only outpost Ku has at all on the continent. Simply even just staying neutral if she doesn't wish to join the succession crisis would be reasonable. Rai Mei's decisions are almost solely going back to the factor of what is best for her people. She wants safety for her people. Obviously this makes sense, but what threat does a guy on the other side of the world pose? He is at best a regional conqueror. The Kingdom of Timurain is not really showing any signs of struggle. I mean, they literally border Ku, and they're not really that worried. Candlebright and Conan Creek should be important nearby targets, and Ku hasn't even gotten close to taking either. If they can't even secure a port right near them, Rai Mei is a coward and a moron for thinking she needs to blindly obey Mugen. It makes even less sense when you consider how little Rai Mei trusts Clan Ku due to their blood. Rai Mei, I got news for you. Hikari struggles with his blood, but Mugen is completely consumed by it. Let's not forget he also is the one that killed your brother. Mugen has no imperial forces on the eastern continent. He's solely at the mercy of Clan Mei in regards to his colonial ambitions. So, Rai Mei should realize that she's in a position that she can actually hold some leverage over Mugen. Not the other way around. Because if she revolts, he has no more foothold on the eastern continent. It's going to be really hard to reestablish that. Even if Mugen did have some forces here to threaten Clan Mei is stronger than they actually pretend to be. They always act like, oh, there's just a few of us, we'll get wiped out easily. They have a lot more security than they make it themselves sound to be. They're pretty modest. They actually have a sizable force compared to what they say they have. They also own a castle which is designed to hold out in defense. That's kind of the purpose of castles. They could probably hold out against a few hundred troops. Let's not forget, amphibious colonial wars are extremely costly and require a lot of logistics and manpower. If they've been able to hold off the church for this long, from just wiping them out of the settlement, then I think Clan Mei is self-sufficient. At least more so than they make themselves out to be. Clan Ku is also fighting a succession crisis in various kingdoms on their borders. They likely could not afford to send enough troops even if they wanted to. Clan Mei should be more afraid of the church, if anything. They're the nearby potential danger. If Ku wanted a holding in the eastern continent, Stormhail might be the least logical location. It's a bustling city, not entirely loyal to them, and has the strong presence of a foreign entity. It's also far from any body of water, which would be helpful to get men and supplies to. A much better choice would be something like Cape Cold, or even just an island off the coast to springboard to when they assemble an army for invasion. As for Clan Mei though, what the writers should have done to make their fear actually make sense is simply just put it in or near Ryu, Conan Creek, or Canalbrine. That's all they had to do. They just needed to go and put it in a different location, and it makes sense then. Ryu would make perfect sense for just a castle outpost, since, as we've already established, it's just more of an outpost than an actual city or anything. It's a place where merchants and gossip gather from all over the continent. It'd be great for intel to be gathered from Mugen's military machine. There's a variety of easy fixes to this. The main point I'm trying to drive home is that Ku isn't really able to threaten Clan Mei realistically. If anything, the reverse is true. Obviously Clan Mei can't wipe Clan Ku off the map and they can't threaten that. But Clan Ku needs Clan Mei way more than Clan Mei needs Clan Ku. If Clan Mei doesn't cooperate, then Clan Ku loses their colony. They lose their only foothold on the eastern continent. They're going to have to take it themselves. I guarantee you that's going to be a lot harder than having someone be your foothold to begin with. To be fair, the geopolitics of Octopath, as autistic as that sounds, has never really been particularly fleshed out. It's never explained how these settlements are related to each other. There doesn't even seem to be any unified countries in the eastern continent. So I just try to make do with what the game said in the lore. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to my rambling. Did this story bother you as well? Do you have any ideas where that rationale might have been for Clan Mei's odd choices? I'd be glad to hear if there's some explanation I just missed or something.